Thank you for that. So I've tried to stick as close to the script as possible. So the learning outcomes from today will be, you wanted to know the Rotary Foundation and how it works. So I've sort of drawn together the relationship with Rotary International, its causes, and how they all work with you. Second part of the presentation will be global and district grants, the types of grants and their relevance to Rotaract, so how you can get involved in that. You asked for an update on polio. So this is the #1 external priority of Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. The #1 internal priority for Rotary International is membership. And last but not least, I was asked ways to donate. So we'll cover that at the end of towards the end of the presentation. And then we will open the floor for questions. Thank you very much. So we're all familiar with the Rotary brand, but the Rotary brand also involves the brand family, as we talked about earlier, and the brand family being Interact, Rotary, and of course, Rotaract. And you can see we are a membership organization. The Rotary Foundation is actually the charity of Rotary International. And we'll go into how the Rotary Foundation works in conjunction with Rotary International. Okay, so the learning outcomes. This is the first part of this afternoon's activities, the relationship with Rotary International, its causes, and how it works. As you know or may not know, Rotary was founded in February of 1905 by Paul Harris. It wasn't until 1917 that what we now know as the Rotary Foundation came into being. And the founder, or the person who started the idea of a foundation, was Arch C. Clump. And there's a picture on the left-hand side of the screen of Arch Clump. We have a mission statement, and you can see it on the right-hand side, and I'll read it out to you. To enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, the alleviation of poverty, and the support of the environment. When you look at those words, they will encapsulate what is known as our 7 areas of focus, and we'll come to that later in this presentation. So, what are the goals? Like every organization, Rotaract as an organization, Rotary as an organization, we have goals. Why do we exist? The goals of the Rotary Foundation are to provide programs and a process, right? And this process will come to light as we move through this presentation, because you asked me about relevance to Rotaract. Next step was focus Rotarian service efforts to increase global impact. If you think about the areas of focus, and we looked at the projects that we will do related to those areas of focus, we create great impact in the world. Now, our #1 priority externally is the eradication of polio. We have been working at that particular project since 1985, and we'll come and talk about that later. But we are delivering great impact to the world because everybody sitting here listening to this presentation really has no fear of getting polio. Yet when I was a child back in the 60s, it was a fear because we were only just starting immunization programs for polio. The Rotary Foundation also supports global and local effort, right? So we look at our projects. End Polio is a global project. Then we have what we call global grants, which you do on a club effort. that you also then have district grants where you can get a grant back from the foundation to do a project in your local community. And we will talk about that also later in this presentation, because Rotaract clubs from July 1 next Rotary year will be eligible to apply for district grants. Okay, moving on. Increased sense of ownership at the district and club level. Rotary and Rotaract, we are an organisation that does things. We are not an organisation that is designed to raise money for other entities. And you'll see that, and we talked about it in the previous presentation where whether there was a discussion on public image, and there was the use of the Rotaract logo and partner logos. And a lot of those activities, Rotaract or Rotary was a funding organisation rather than the doing organisation. And people will know us more for what we do rather than just shaking the can and raising money to give to somebody else so that they can do good in the world. And last but not least, we talk about enhancing Rotary or Rotaract's public image. And it's been an absolute delight for me to follow our previous speaker, because he had some tremendous messages in his presentation for you in terms of building your brand equity beyond your club in the community. So in essence, the Rotary Foundation provides a framework. We are a cause-based organisation looking at community needs. We deliver impact, and people will know us for what we do, right? And at the end of the day, it's all about brand building. If we fund it, if we do it, if it's seen to be us, then Rotary did it, right? Rather than you just raising the money and handing it off to someone else so that they can be the inspiration for people saying, well, I really want to support that organisation. So back in 2013, we were all things to all people, and every club, be it a Rotaract club, be it a Rotary club, we used to do projects in whatever we thought was the opportune thing in our community. But Rotary decided that we needed to give impact. So we created 6 areas of focus. And as of July 1 this year, the environment became the 7th area of focus. So our areas of focus, or our causes: peace and conflict, disease prevention, water, maternal and child health, education, community development, and environment. They are what we call internally Rotary's area of focus. Yet externally, we talk about causes. And if we look at your demographic, and your demographic, fundamentally, Rotaractors tend to fit mostly between 18 and 30 years of age. Your demographic is very cause related. You like to do things in relation to a cause. So if we take all of our areas of focus, which is what Rotarians will talk about, we'll transfer those into causes, and that gives you the opportunity to become a cause-based problem solver. So peace and conflict building or conflict prevention becomes promoting peace. Disease prevention and treatment becomes fighting disease as a cause. Water, sanitation and hygiene becomes providing clean water as a cause. Maternal and child health becomes supporting or saving mothers and children, and so on as we go down the list. But where did all this come from? And where it actually came from, many of you may be familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, of which there are 17. If you look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, you will see that the 7 areas of focus are actually drawn from those Sustainable Development Goals. So there is a very close link between what we do as an organization, being cause-based, and what the United Nations has determined are the sustainable goals for our future, right? So let's look at each one of those just quickly Peace building and conflict prevention. You have a logo there for area of focus. You have the cause, which is fighting disease. What are the key activities that we as an organization do in there? We provide scholarships, we empower peace, we improve human rights, and we train leaders in the field of peace. Giving you an example there is that we now have a number of university partners around the world where we have what we call Rotary Peace Fellow scholarships. There are over 100 of those scholarships every year, and that's a whole presentation. I can come back and talk to you at some other time, or somebody in your district can talk to you at some time about the Rotary Peace Fellow program. We look at disease prevention and treatment. Area of focus, the cause is fighting disease. What are our key activities in there? Improving local capacity in fighting those diseases. And I was interested in looking in your lunchtime lunchtime break, you had lots of videos running, and there was quite a number of videos that you should run at your club level, if possible, on the relationship that polio and the eradication of polio has brought to the COVID-19 eradication effort as well. So there's a lot of learnings that we have Rotary have developed and transferred to other organizations to help overcome. Right, you'll see in there, for example, 400 million people do not have access to essential health services. So in your community, you can actually look and say, how can we as a Rotaract club work to deliver better health services within our community? We look at water, sanitation and hygiene. Every day, most of us are fortunate enough that we can turn the tap on and the water that comes out of that tap in our home is drinkable. At least I think it is for most of the places that you live in, like I do here in Australia. I mean, the water that comes through the pipe to our house is quite drinkable, and I hope it is in your part of the world. But here we have water, sanitation and hygiene as the area of focus, and the cause, relatively simply, providing clean water. So what are the activities? What are the things that we do when we look towards building projects in this particular area of focus? And that is tackling sanitation and hygiene issues, improving water quality and access to fresh, clean water. And then also, again, from an educational point of view, in terms of providing scholarships. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen in each of these slides, you'll see what we call Rotary Foundation investment, the number of grants that we have provided over the last 5 years and the amount of money that has been spent by the Rotary Foundation as we trickle through each of these areas of focus. Maternal and child health, area of focus. The cause, saving mothers and children, making life better for the 0 to 5-year-olds, right? Key activities there are improving access to services, education and provision of equipment, life-saving interventions, and improving pregnancy outcomes for women and newborns. I'll take back education and provision of equipment. A lot of Rotary clubs, when they're putting projects together, look at communities and say, what sort of equipment is in the local hospitals to give newborn babies the best start available in life? In some communities, we are very blessed where the government does provide outstanding hospitals for the community. In other communities, we are not so fortunate. So that's where Rotary or Rotaract can step in and start saying, righto, what are the needs in your hospital? How can we help as an organization to fill the gap in those needs? And the nice thing is, if you put equipment into those hospitals, you put a sticker on it or some branding around it to say this equipment was provided by the Rotaract Club of. And that stays there for the entire time that that equipment is being used, so you are building impact in your community. And speaking of community, another area of focus is community and economic development. That's the area of focus. The cause is growing local communities. The key activities there, building capacity to spur economic growth. I mean, if you can give someone a skill that they can create a job from that and feed their family, you have provided economic growth in the community. And what you've done there is developing opportunities for work. And again, more at a Rotary level than a Rotaract level, we're providing academic scholarships. Again, all of the areas of focus, Rotary clubs through the Rotary Foundation can provide scholarships at a master's degree level so people can further their education. Again, you look at it and you say, righto, there's 830 million people in the world that live on less than $1.25 per day. And everyone sitting here listening to this presentation, just take a moment to think what it would be like in your life if you had to live on less than $1.25 per day. Just think about that for a second. Think about what you had for lunch and what did that cost. Think about what you had for breakfast, without even thinking about what it cost to put the roof over your head, what it cost to put the bed in your room, all of those things. And yet there's 830 million people in the world, and probably more, that actually have to exist on less than $1.25 per day. Basic education and literacy. And I think this is one of the greatest things that Rotary and Rotaract can help. So that's the area of focus. The cause is supporting education. Basically, what we're looking at doing is training teachers to improve educational outcomes, right? Supporting students in learning and enrollment. So sometimes it might not be the classroom that's provided. It's actually more important to provide that teacher training so that that teacher can impart the knowledge. Yes, it's nice to put a classroom around that teaching environment, but in a lot of parts of the world, sometimes the teacher will just stand in the field with a bunch of kids and impart the knowledge. And that's, if that teacher wasn't there, those people, those young kids would not have the opportunity to learn. And you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen where you see 750 million people in the world cannot read or write. Just sit there and think for a minute what your life would be like if you couldn't read or couldn't write. Just think about it for a minute. And last but not least, the environment. And this, the Rotary Foundation thought long and hard about moving from 6 areas of focus to 7. Did we want to support the environment? Did we want to not have one of the other areas of focus? Did we want to merge 2 areas of focuses together and have a new one called the environment, so we stayed at 6? And the trustees of the Rotary Foundation made the decision 2 years ago that no, the 6 areas of focus that we have are strategically important to us as an entity, and that the environment is all about the future. It's the world that we live in. And if we're going to create a world that is sustainable, we have got to start caring for the environment that we live in. So the environment and the cause, protecting the environment, became the 7th area of focus on the 1st of July this year. So, what's the value proposition for delivering Rotary branded projects? And I talk about Rotary branded because if you look at the Rotaract brand, you've got the Rotaract name with the Rotary wheel. So we are a family. And the value proposition of delivering a Rotary branded project is we increase our impact. So people see that it's Rotary and Rotaract that are doing or providing something in the community that is wanted by the community. We enhance member engagement, and we look at Rotaract. And if we look at a university or an educational institution-based club, the average Rotaractor's life is around about 3 years. Whereas if we look at a community-based Rotaract club, the average life of a Rotaractor is 7 to 8 years within Rotaract before they might just determine whether they move on to Rotary or not. And unfortunately, we're not good at moving from Rotaract to Rotary. Less than 5% of all Rotaractors eventually make it. And past President Barry Rassin, in his year as Rotary International President, has one of his focuses elevate Rotaract, right? So Rotaract is now part of the family of Rotary rather than being a project, a youth project of Rotary. So what we're looking to do is enhance member engagement. Why did I join a Rotaract club? What did I want to achieve in my membership? And by doing branded projects, the Rotaract Club of did this, we're actually enhancing your engagement because you've got a reason for being involved. We expand our reach. What does that mean? It means that people witness what we are doing. And if we go back to looking at the mission statement of the Rotary Foundation, it is to do good in the world, right? And people see us doing good, and then they say, hey, I would like to be part of what you are doing. How do I become a Rotaractor? How do I become a Rotarian? And last but not least, we demonstrate our ability to adapt. So whilst we might be a childcare nurse, whilst we might be an engineer, whilst we might be a teacher, whilst we might be a marketing person, by getting involved in projects, we learn to adapt, we learn new skills, and we learn to be a better person in the world. So we look at the Rotary Foundation as a charity, like World Vision, like Cancer Council, like the Heart Foundation. These are all charities out there. And people willingly give these charities millions of dollars per year, and that's the last they see of that money. All charities are rated by the Charity Navigator, and your charity, the one that you have a stake in, the Rotary Foundation, is one of the highest rated charities in the world. It's actually rated in the top 10. Now, I don't know how many charities would be covered in this region, but to give you an example, in a country like Australia, which has 25 million people, there are 65,000 registered charities. So start looking. I don't know how many there would be in the Philippines. I don't know how many there would be in Japan. I don't know how many charities there would be in Taiwan, but it might be interesting. But globally, your charity, the one that you are part of, is rated in the top 10. Why? We have one of the lowest administration charges because in every charity, you have somebody who has to run the thing, right? So I am part of the cost of running the Rotary Foundation because I work specifically for the foundation. The base of anything that we do starts with what we call a community needs assessment. Now, once upon a time, Rotary would go to a Rotary club would go to a community and say, hey, you need this. And the community goes, no, but we'll take it anyway. What we do now is we go and do a community needs assessment. We ask the community what the needs are, and then we look at it and say, well, does it fit with what we do? What are our best expertise? We come back to our areas of focus or the causes that we're related to. But what we're doing is we're delivering on a community need rather than a perception of what the need is. The other thing that we do when we do a project is we look at sustainability. And I'll use a very simplistic description of we provide a water well in a community. Sustainability says when I come back in 5 years' time, is that water well still working? Have we trained the people where that well is on how to fix the pump if it's broken, for example, right? Is it still delivering the fresh, clean water that we envisage when that well was installed. So if you look at it in simplistic terms, sustainability is one of our core values. We talk about Rotarian or Rotaract engagement. What do we bring to the project? We bring planning and technical support skills. Everyone sitting here on this Zoom call all has an area of expertise. And when you're putting a project together, it's about drawing all of the elements of expertise in your club and beyond your club together so that you can deliver that project. And the other thing that's quite different about what we do is there's a thing called World Fund Match. Now, when Rotarians make a donation to the Rotary Foundation, it goes to what's called the annual fund. What Rotary International does, it takes all of those donations and they invest them for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, they give 50% of the initial investment back to the Rotary districts, which becomes what is known as their DDF, their district designated funds. That's a whole other story, which we'll get involved later, and we'll get your district Rotary Foundation chairs to come and explain it all to you. But when you put a grant together, you can use the DDF not only from your district, but from other districts around the world. And the reason for doing that is the name of our organization is Rotary International, and you must have an international partner in every project that you do. And then by having an international partner, they can also help fund the projects that you can do. They can fund it from the club, or they can use some of their district's DDF to fund the project. And last but not least, there's a thing called stewardship. It's all about, well, we put this project together. The project was going to cost $50,000. How much of that $50,000 did we actually spend? And when you put the report into RI at the end of your project, we need to see a totally transparent accountability of everything that was spent on that project. And if there's money left over, it gets sent back to RI, okay? So we teach you all of those things on the way through. So I talked about when Rotarians give money, and Rotaractors can also raise money, because you are also very good fundraisers. But you tend to want to raise money, like most Rotary clubs do as well. They want to raise money for some charity to do something. In Rotary Foundation, we have 4 sub-charities, as it were. We have the annual fund, which generates the DDF. It funds projects and scholarships of the Rotary Foundation. We have the endowment fund, and if you listen at Rotary International conferences, they'll talk about Project 2025, which is about building an endowment of $2 billion by the year 2025. And what the endowment fund does, it funds World Fund through also additional DDF, but it also funds specific district grants and projects at the trustees' discretion. The polio fund, when you give money to polio, 100% of what you give to Rotary International for polio is spent on polio. Nothing's taken aside for administration. It just goes straight through. And we'll talk about that when we get to the polio end of our presentation. We also have now known as what we call disaster relief funds. And occasionally there's a flood, there's a fire, there's an earthquake, it's a national disaster. And Rotary will give Rotary districts an emergency fund, a grant of up to $25,000 at a time. It sounds small, but $25,000 can provide a lot of activity on the ground very fast if a Rotary club is committed to getting stuff out to people in extreme distress. So, building our brand reputation through a project management process. When we put a project together, it's about identify the community need. Is what we are doing delivering real impact in the community? And there's a little tool that we've got called the Community Needs Assessment, right? From there, we identify the cause. What cause within Rotary? Remember our 7 areas of focus, our 7 causes, because all of our global grant projects must fit a cause, right? Form a project team. right? Engage Rotarians, Rotaractors, and other stakeholders in putting this project together. Ask yourself the question, will what we're doing be sustainable? Then we go and fundraise. We've got to get some money together to fund this particular project. Now, do we raise the money? Do we ask our Rotary Club? Do we talk to our Rotary District? Do we have an international partner that can help fund this project with some of their DDF? Then we go and implement the project to deliver sustainable outcomes in the community. And at the end, we evaluate and publicize what we do. Remember the public image presentation that you just had? And that's all about building your brand equity. We move on now to district and global grants. Right. Rotary has basically two kinds of grants that you can be involved in: district grants and global grants. In a very simplistic term, I've used something here in Australia that a Rotary Club did. It asked for a district grant, and I use the example there. It provided some shelter and picnic tables in a park in a community. These kinds of grants are what we call small scale, short-term grants. They can be local, so you can do them in your community, or you can do them internationally. They have to align with the foundation's mission to do good in the world. It's a single grant that's awarded to the district each year. It's based on a percentage of their DDF, and a club submission is required. Remember that when you want to get a district grant, which will be available to you from July 1 of next year, all right? Global grants, large scale grants, must meet a community need, must have sustainable, measurable outcomes, must align with an area of focus, must have an international partner, and can be World Fund matched. We don't need to go in more detail today, but I'm just giving you an overview. I would like to give you an idea. So a minimum global grant is $30,000 US. Now, most Rotaract clubs will be sitting there saying there is no way in the world that we could ever fund a project for $30,000. This is an example, and I've picked a project in Papua New Guinea, which was a cervical cancer vaccination project. You can read about what the project entailed there very quickly. There's a copy of this presentation available after this meeting. But fundamentally, the sponsor club put $1,000 into this project, and the total project value was $329,000. The great thing about this project was that it was easily replicated over and over and over again. It was such a good project. RI loved it, and it has encouraged other Rotary clubs and districts to get involved in this project. So even whilst not having the actual funds themselves, by using the Rotary network and the ability to match funds from districts and clubs around the world, they put that project together with seed money of $1,000. Now, most Rotaract clubs could come up with that kind of money if they wanted to, right? So what skills do you learn in doing a global grant or doing a project? First off, project management skills. All or part of the project is part of your own personal development. We look at leadership. In the project team, someone's got to take leadership and someone's got to do the hard yards, but it also helps you build confidence and the passion to deliver. Advocacy, learning the ability to get the whole club focused. So it might have been your idea, but you bring the club along so that you can deliver on that project, right? Empathy. Some of us are very lucky in life, and some of us may not know what the less fortunate among us have to live. And by doing this project, you learn empathy with those that are less fortunate than ourselves. And finally, financial planning. It's all about putting a budget together and how can we deliver this project cost effectively. So what doing a Rotary or a Rotaract Global Grant project is all about is giving you a whole skill set that you might not get to use in your every day-to-day work life, but helps you be a more rounded person. So what's in it for Rotaract Club? It's all about building the club reputation. It's about saying to people in your community, hey, we can do this, right? We don't actually have to rely on somebody else. By building your club reputation, you become an entity that your demographic says, hey, I want to be part of this. You get community recognition, so you build trust with your local community. And your community says, yes, we can trust you and we can rely on you. You become a better you, right? You gain skill sets through life experiences that are addition to your academic skills. We are a cause-focused based organization, so collectively focused on a set of causes that deliver sustainable outcomes. And last but not least, sustainable equity. So when you put a project together, you get long-lasting satisfaction. You can come back years later and say, hey, we did this together. Our club did this. Or you can look at it and say, I was part of it. I did this. So let's look at the future, starting now. Each one of you needs to register on My Rotary. So you go to www.rotary.org and register as a Rotaract, or get your club secretary to register you in the network. Go to the Learning Centre. One of the greatest assets that we have in the organisation is the Learning Centre and the short courses that you can do to enhance your personal development. I would ask every one of you to do Rotary Basics. It's a 15-minute course, but it will help you greatly understand the organisation that you're part of. And there's a ton of other personal development courses that you can do in there, and you get a little certificate at the end of every one of them. Getting ready for January through July next year. Start setting your fundraising goals. Attend a grants seminar. Every Rotary district that you are part of has a Rotary grant seminar. And if you're looking at a global grant, your club must participate in a grant seminar. Start doing a community needs assessment. You can do that right now with the club in your community to try and understand what are the greatest needs of your community. And along the way, make the odd donation to the Rotary Foundation, and we'll talk about that later on. Now, from July next year, what we need to do is increase your Rotary knowledge. We want you to select a project. We want you to apply for a grant. You can actually apply for a district grant from July 1 next year. And if you want to look at a global grant, you can be a host or you can be an international partner with another Rotary club. You can't do it with another Rotaract club, but you can do it with another Rotary club in another part of the world, okay? So what are the key goals to success? Community needs assessment is where you start. Rotarian engagement, so if you're doing a global grant, somewhere along the way, you've got to partner with another Rotary club. And you've also got to have an international partner. It must have an area of focus and it must be sustainable. So quickly, an update on polio. Before most of you were born, in 1988, when RI started the eradication of polio program, polio was endemic in over 120 countries of the world. Right now, in 2021, there are only 2 endemic countries left in the world, Afghanistan and Pakistan. But we do have a good news story, and I'll get to that in a minute. But what's the role of Rotary? What's the role of Rotaract? One is fundraising. We, as an organization, have to raise $50 million every year. But if we do that, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation match our contribution $2 for 1, right? So our $50 million becomes $150 million. Rotary International is the biggest non-government funder of the polio eradication program. Advocacy. We as Rotarians talk to governments of the world to get their financial support. It's going to cost nearly $5 billion to eradicate polio from today. And we can only raise about $150 million a year. So the governments of the world kick in. The biggest funder, believe it or not, is the United States government that puts over $400 million a year into polio eradication worldwide. There has not been a case of polio in the United States since about 1970, but they're still funding it. Raise awareness. And we can talk about all the campaigns. One of the things you might be aware of, put in your diary, 24th of October every year is World Polio Day. So what can our Rotaract Club do to create awareness? And we talk about engagement, which is Rotarian engagement to be involved in the program. What do? We immunise children. Every year we immunise over 450 million children against polio. We fund over 150,000 polio workers worldwide, and we're constantly doing disease prevalence activities. So we're doing water quality testing to see if there's polio in the environment. That will tell us if somebody in the community has contracted polio, and it just about works every time. And there we go. This year, only 2 people have contracted wild polio virus. So we're getting incredibly close to eradicating polio. So please, we'd love to see you as a club raise money, even if it's a small amount of money, or make a donation to ending polio. So the action plan there is ending polio is our #1 priority for Rotary and Rotaract. Make it a club priority. Every club should be asked to raise funds to support for this cause. Combined club and personal giving. So you might want to raise a project and say we want to raise money to put to polio, but you also might want to put your hand in your pocket. We can talk about that later on, and make a small contribution to ending polio, and get a speaker from your Rotary district to present to your club on the bigger picture of what's happening with polio. And last but not least, ways to donate. The best and easiest way, except for New Zealand, and I'll come back to that, is to go to the Rotary website, www.rotary.org, and click on the donate button. When you get there, click on one of the causes, be it annual fund, be it polio, be it disaster fund, and then pick the currency that you want, right? So you'll select your currency. If you're in the Philippines, you can click Philippines. If you click currency, it'll be peso, and it's a one-time donation, and you click the amount and enter the amount. And it's really important so that you get, if you are a registered Rotaractor, then the contribution is then registered against your club giving. So it's really important that you use the sign-in button there. We also recognize our donors, and we have a number of donor recognition programs, EREY, which is the Every Rotarian Every Year, which is $25 to $100 per year. The Paul Harris Fellow, which I'm sure you've seen, that's for one-off or cumulative donations of $1,000 a year. Paul Harris Society, if you see those pins, that's Rotarians who contribute $1,000 or more every year to the Rotary Foundation. A major donor pin, that means that personal or cumulative donations of $10,000 or more. And if you see an Arch Clump pin, that particular Rotarian has contributed $250,000 or more to the Rotary Foundation. Or a bequest is where someone has left in their estate plan, in their will, some money to the Rotary Foundation of $10,000 or more. There's a thing called the Rotaract Giving Certificate, and we'd like to encourage you to go down this road. So get your club secretary to register you or your club as a giver on the Rotary Foundation. Set yourself a goal to donate. You can get 10 members to donate $5. For a club to get a Rotaract Giving Certificate, you have to have a combined giving of personal giving of $50. So 10 members can put $5 in, and your club will get a certificate which says that this club is recognized as a Rotary Foundation giving club, right? So you can select your fund. It's either annual fund or polio, and we'd like you to give to polio if you could. Some resources out there. You've got your regional Rotary Foundation coordinator, your endowment and major gift advisor. Every district has an end polio coordinator. Every district has a Rotary Foundation chair. Every district has a Rotaract chair, and there's Rotary staff around the world that can help you to come and give presentations to your Rotary clubs as well. At the end of the day, we're delivering your potential through cause-based projects. Thank you very much. You told me 45 minutes, and I spoke for 45 minutes and 36 seconds. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, sir, for enriching our knowledge on the Rotary Foundation. It is inspiring to know that we are also part of an organization that does more good to the world by having its own foundation.
So, questions?
Okay, well, for the audience, please drop your question in the chat box, or you may use the raise hand function. Please wait for us to acknowledge you before you unmute and speak.
I think during the Sir Mark presentation just now, one comment by Oliver has mentioned one comment. He mentioned that currently it is very difficult for Rotaractors to have their donation credited under their name and ID number. So many Rotaractors donate but not credited to their club and their own account. It is also very difficult for DRRs to know who exactly among their Rotaractors or clubs contributed to TRF. So is there any possible measure that may be considered or taken by the RI to make it easier for the Rotaractors to donate to TRF?
Right. The best thing to do is, in a Rotary club, the club secretary actually lists all of the members as members of that particular Rotary club. With Rotaract, I believe that you can go in and enter yourself as a member of the Rotaract Club, but I would suggest that you work with your district membership chair in Rotary to say, how can you give us some help in how do we list all of the members of our Rotaract Club in the RI website, so www.rotary.org. Once your club is listed, you will get an Rotary ID number. Right? If you remember back to the end of the presentation, you hit that donate button, there's a little sign in. The minute that you sign in, the RI website knows that it is you. They know your donor number. They know which club you are, right? So I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Beecroft. When I log in, I don't have to tell it that I'm a member, because once I've logged in through my email address, it knows who I am and it knows which club I'm related to. So when you register, your email address is paramount important, right? Because that is the link that tells Rotary who you are and what club you belong to. So as you make your $2 or $5 or $10 donations, it's then credited back to your club, but it's also credited to you as an individual donor. So if in your life as a Rotaractor, you can give $1,000 over your lifetime, you become a Paul Harris Fellow, right? That's one of those pins. Does that help?
Very much. Thank you very much, PDG. That really helped. We are very much helped by RISPPOO staff like Grace and Ross. We thank them dearly. But I have another question, if I may be allowed. In the past, Rotaractors are given access to the scholarships offered by the Rotary Foundation. I'm curious if, because of Elevate Rotaract, are Rotaractors now disqualified to be part of any scholarship that is available from the Rotary Foundation?
That's a very good question. And I actually don't have the answer to that question. I'm sorry, I'll have to come back to you. A lot of Rotarians are disqualified straight up. I can tell you that now. They would not be able to apply for a Rotary Foundation scholarship. I would doubt that Rotaractors would also be able to, but I'll find the answer. I apologize. No one's ever asked me that question before.
Yes, PDG. I was curious because I was also part of a GSE. And there were some Rotaractors who they didn't know that they were actually put in the roster of the Rotary clubs in the past without their knowledge. And they applied for GSE, and lo and behold, they were disqualified, even though they didn't know that they were Rotarians. So
yeah, so like when I applied for GSE, I was a Rotaractor. Right.
Yes.
And as a Rotaractor, I could go on GSE because I was not. The rules were then because the the program that he's talking about there is Group Study Exchange Program. That program now no longer exists. It's now been replaced with the Vocational Training Teams Program.
VTT.
Similar, yeah, VTT. But Rotaractors could apply. Now, I will find out and get the answer back to you early next week, if that helps. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's also another question by DRE Tanabello from Philippines. Is it possible to get a copy of your presentation? Because I think all of us here would agree that your presentation just now was very informative, so that the leaders here can actually share it with their own Rotaract district committee.
Yeah, I sent a copy of the presentation to your director this morning. So the chair, Louis, has got a copy, and I guess that he can share that copy with you. It's about a 9 meg presentation, so it's pretty easily transportable through the internet.
Yes, that's great, Dan.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
So I took it from the point of view that a lot of Rotaractors do not know a lot about the foundation, and that's why I tried to go into some detail on the causes, and I hope that came across that way. Yes.
Yes, correct. Because I think all of us here are very, very new to this, and
Yes.
only know about this global grant when the new policy was introduced, like last year. So,
But I think the objective is, I mean, a lot of Rotary clubs are very good at raising money, and they're very good at raising money for other causes. And we would like to think that Rotaract clubs could raise money for their own charity, which is the Rotary Foundation. And every Rotaract club should have a relationship with a Rotary club somewhere. Like I know here in Australia, each one of our clusters of 6 or 7 Rotary clubs supports a Rotary club, supports a Rotaract club. So if there's issues in terms of if we raise the money for a cause, how do we get that money into the foundation? Because if you want a district grant next year, one of the things that the Rotary district will look at will say, because they look at Rotary, does this Rotary club support the Rotary Foundation, right? So if you have, as a Rotaract club, say we're going to have a fundraising event, where is the money that you're going to raise from that event going to go to? So I would suggest that you might like to pick one of the 7 causes and say, we are donating to the environment through Rotary Foundation. We are donating to education through the Rotary Foundation. We are donating to water and sanitation through the Rotary Foundation. These are the causes that we are involved in, and these are the causes that we as a Rotaract club would like to do projects in. Does that make sense?
yes. I saw PDR Oliver has raised his hand.
Yeah. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. PDG, it's very interesting that Rotaractors will now have access to the district grants starting next year, July 1. I don't want to ask too much about it, but I hope it can be clearly shared through our MDIOs, how Rotaractors can avail of this. And second, what will be the mechanics? Will Rotaract clubs will have the same privilege as Rotary clubs with regards to the amount given? So guidelines like that. I hope we would receive that. I do trust our own governor with regards to that, but I'm not confident with the others.
Okay.
I'm sorry about this, but this is reality. Sometimes RI has very good programs, but it is not well executed in the ground. And most of the time, Rotaractors are left in the dark with regards to this. I'm so happy that we have the MDIOs now that can coordinate with the Parramatta office and other offices. So probably we can have them assist the DRRs in order to educate our club presidents, especially next year, with regards to the district grant applications.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
To answer your question, if there's 100 Rotary districts in this area, which you represent, there'll be 100 different rules as
Yes.
to how a district grant will work.
Mhm.
Every district has its own rules.
Mhm.
So in some districts, it will be an outright grant to say, look, we have $100 and we've got 50 clubs that are applying. So each club's going to get $2. Bang.
Mhm.
Done. Right? Or in my district, how it works is the district foundation chair will say, if you're going to do a project, you have to write and tell us in about 200 words what the project is going to be. And the maximum grant that we will give you is $2,500. But we will only give you $2,500 if you put $2,500 in as well. So they're saying to us that if the project's a $5,000 project, the club has to put 2.5 in and they'll give us 2.5. That's in our district, right? Your district may do things differently. And I know that there's, for example, in the Philippines, there are 10 Rotary districts and they all have different rules, right? I see that when the district reports come through, because you can get a report from RI which says, let's look at District 3810. Let's look at the district grants for last year. It will list the clubs. It will list what the project was. It lists how much the application was for and how much was actually spent on the project. So that information is available. So each of you can go back to your district Rotary Foundation chair and say, look, could I have a copy of the district grant report for last Rotary year? So that way you can get a bit of an idea of what projects were supported by Rotary clubs in your district, and ask them also, what are the rules of engagement, right? Because the rules for Rotaract will be identical to the rules for the Rotary Club. You are a full equal partner, right? So what's happening in one district is not the same as what's happening in another district. So please, if you want to know, just ask your district Rotary Foundation chair. And if you have problems in Singapore area, there's Hazel So is my counterpart in Philippines. There is Gretchen Laurel. She is also a Rotary staff person in the Philippines. Hazel looks after Taiwan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. So those sort of people are available there to support you from an office or staff point of view. But please, first port of call is your district Rotary Foundation chair. Does that help?
Julie noted, Gov. Thank you very much.
We can all go home now.
Hi, Mark. Well, thank you for your answers. I actually got another question with me right now.
That's all right. You go.
So when Rotaract clubs become eligible for the global grants, the clubs are required to have their own bank account, or can they still pass through the bank account of their Rotary club?
No.
The reason is like a lot of clubs may not have the bank accounts right now, so that's why they are concerning.
Yep. When a global grant is put together, part of the application process will be a separate bank account for that project only, right? So if you are the host club of the particular global grant, so you have an international partner outside of your country, which means you will also be funding from maybe a multiple number of districts. RI collects all of the money. So RI collects the money from the clubs that are contributing to the project. Then RI matches it with the district designated fund, the DDF. and then they say you're the host club. The money goes into the bank account for that project. So if you are a global grant host as a Rotaract club, you will need to have an international partner that is a Rotary club. And if you're the host, you will have to open a separate bank account. It cannot be any part of the club bank account. So in my Rotary club, we have a bank account. And then when we do global grants, which we try to do 2 a year, we actually have to have a separate bank account for that project. So when the project is being funded, every transaction is through that bank account. It is absolutely transparent because at the end of the project, you have to provide a copy of the bank statements back to RI to match all of the receipts, right, for every transaction, right? So it can't be part of a club bank account. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Big learning exercise.
Yes, it will be quite a challenge for Filipino.
I think for Rotaract clubs, the best thing to do is you learn first and you do a district grant project. And in a district grant project, the money can go through the club bank account, right? But in a global grant, it has to be a separate account.
In the instance that the Rotaract clubs may not or may have difficulty in opening a bank account, in the context of district grant, would they be able to leverage on the Rotary club or the Rotary club account?
Yeah, look, without knowing all of the rules in each country, I really can't answer that question. See, in this country, in Australia, each Rotaract club has its own bank account.
Understood. Thank you. Let's see if there's any further questions from the floor.
I think we'll end the Q&A session since we do not have any further questions. All right. Thank you again, Sir Mark, and thank you, leaders, for enriching our sessions today. Allow us to express our sincere gratitude through this certificate of appreciation presented by the Asia Pacific Rotaract MDIO to Mr. Mark Anderson for imparting his knowledge and insight as resource speaker on the Rotary Foundation and Grants during the Asia Pacific Rotaract Leaders Summit given this 24th July 2021, and signed by Louis Boy-Dirieu, our chair for the MDIO Asia Pacific.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. May we request you to smile for a picture of the certificate?
Okay, Sir Mark, kindly smile in your camera. Okay, thank you.